Okay, where we are now, we've created our HUD. So if I hit play now, you see my point system, the overhead heads-up display comes up, and I hit enter, and a ball comes down. And remember, we have one of those red ones underneath this hole, and you notice the ball goes through, and there's no points, but the ball does disappear. What's happened here is I'm going to scroll this up a little bit and connect on this. Oh, actually, no, let's go to the ball, because the ball, right now, here's our collision for our game over. That's the big outside one. But we also had a collision for ball end, just so the ball would end. And we copied that particular plane to do this. So all of the logic is still there. But what it did, Blender's pretty smart about this, we changed it. We changed it from ball end to 1 point. And Blender automatically went in and switched the material to 1 point. So basically what it's saying is that when the ball touches something called 1 point, which is the material on the red plane, then it's going to end the object. So Blender was pretty smart on that. If you end up with a problem with that, take a look there to make sure that Blender switched that over for you. So what we need to do now is we're going to go back here, and when the ball falls through, when it falls through this hole, we want to be able to score 1 point. We've set up our HUD. We've got our text that is just plain old text, and we've got our dynamic text that's called points. We want to send a message to points that something has happened. So I'm going to select the 1 point plane. I'm going to put some logic on this. So the 1 point plane, when we have a collision with something called ball, we want to send a message. And I'm going to go ahead and close this right now. So I'm going to come down here to the actuator. We're going to use our message actuator. We want to send a message to something. So let's see first off what we've created. We want to send a message to, let me see, where did it go? I got a lot of stuff in here. Points. Because that is, and we'll go back, let's go back and look at the HUD. Look at it from the front. This text here is called points. So we want to send it to this text. So I'm going to go back to scene. So I want to send something to points. Now again, this is going to be a 1 point, so I'm going to just make the subject 1 point. No spaces, 1 point, and that's it. And that's all I have to do. So now, does anything change? If I hit play, I hit my enter key, the ball, let me see if I can roll it in. And it's hard to see the points, but you're going to see nothing's going to change there. Nothing's going to happen because we haven't really finished. We haven't really finished our system. So right now we've got when the ball touches the plane called 1 point, it's sending a message to that dynamic text we created called points. And the subject of that text is 1 point. So now let's go to our HUD, and we're going to look at it from the camera view. Again, I've got this one selected. So now we're going to do a message. So now when points receives a message and the subject is 1 point, and again, this has to be typed exactly because if it's not, the syntax is not going to recognize it. We want to do something. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go to property, and by default it comes up as a sign. We don't want to assign anything. We want to add a number, and we want to add 1 point, a positive value, to a property that we created called text. So we'll get these connected. Now let's go back to our scene. We're in the play mode, so I hit P for play, drop a ball, and hopefully now when it goes through that that opening. Oh, well, let's get it to go through that opening first off. Well, I'm no good at my own game. There we go. So now we get 1 point. And the ball disappears. So basically what we've done here to recap this is on our ball, we've told the ball basically when it collides with something called 1 point, it's still going to end the object. So that's nothing different. When we go to the plane we created underneath, we told it when it has a collision with a material called ball, that it's going to send a message to points. That's our dynamic text, that's 0, and the subject is 1 point. Then when we go to our dynamic text in the HUD, we're going to say that when it receives a message called 1 point, something's going to happen. And we created a property on that. So we're going to say that we're going to add a +1 to that property called text. And we get points. Now let's go back and let's go back to the scene here. I'm going to look from the top. I'm going to get rid of this one. This one's already got a bunch of logic stuck on it, so I'm going to do a Shift D and I'm going to push it over here. So right now you see it's got all of the same logic. So the same thing should happen. But now what if we want to take away a point? So I'm going to do another Shift D and I'm going to push this over here. And I'm going to scale this on the Y a little bit. I just want it a little bit bigger. Now it's red and it has all this logic on it, and we really don't want that. So for right now, I'm going to get rid of the logic on this. If you notice, I still go back to the others and the logic is still there. I'm going to get rid of this logic and we're going to make this something different. I'm going to go into the edit mode, toggle over to the edit mode. So that's selected. I need to add one. And I'm going to do this new, call this -1 point. And I'm going to change the color. And I'm going to assign it to that. So this is called -1 point, and it's that color. So if I look at it from the top, you see that it's green. And this is the same exact thing. So now, when this, and I'm going to call this instead of 1 point plane.002, I'm going to call this -1 point plane. There. So we have to do just exactly the same stuff here. Now, we've changed the name of this plane. So first off, let's go back into the object mode. And I'm going to go look at the ball. When the ball, when the ball touches something, so I'm going to have a collision with my ball. When it touches a material called -1 point, something is going to happen. I want it to do what? I want it to end object. So instead of add object, I'm going to have it end object. So that tells me that when it touches, it will go away. Okay, so now when it goes through there, it's going to disappear. Whoops, sorry, click on this. So when it goes back through and it touches a material called -1 point, it's going to end that object. So we've got that taken care of. Go back to our plane. So we'll test things one piece at a time here. Go into camera mode, hit P, hit enter. So right now I want to make sure that when it goes through the hole that it does disappear, and it does. So good. No points were scored, but it disappears. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go to the 1-point plane, and I'm going to add a sensor. Let me make sure I'm on the right one. Here we go. When we have a collision with something called, it's a material called ball, we're going to send a message. So we come down here to message. We're going to send a message to, let me scroll down here, points, and the subject is going to be -1 point. Get these connected. Now nothing is still going to happen because we don't have this connected to our HUD. So now let's go up here to our HUD, and again, come to the camera view. On here, I'm going to say, I'm going to add a message sensor. So when I get a message and the subject is -1 point, then I'm going to go to my property, and I'm going to add, because we don't have any subtract here, I'm going to add to the property of text a -1. So now the point should go the other way. So let's see if this works. Go down to scene. I'm going to hit play, hit my enter key. So we'll get a point or two first here. There's one. Level it back out, hit another one. So we get 2 points. Level this back out, hit it again. Go in here, it should go back to 1. Do another one. Hit here. Oh, could it fall in? No. There we go, goes back to 0. So now we have our point systems working the way we want to. Now, your challenge will be to add another one for 5 points for these smaller holes. So again, all we did here is we took our planes and we added a messaging system. We said that when we had a collision and the ball touched a plane, it sent a message to something called points. That is our active, our dynamic text, the 0. Then it said that, okay, when I receive something, a message called 1 point, then to that dynamic text, I'm going to add a value of 1. And that's how we get our points. So have some fun with this, and there'll be one more in this series on points, just to get you guys caught up on adding larger values. Have fun and happy blending.